We gotta clean this mess up. The frost this past weekend was so much more severe than I think I even was entertaining in my mind. I waited a few days. It's time to clean some of this mess up. That frost that we had this past weekend was crazy across the whole state. I've seen so many pictures and videos across the whole state from people on Facebook and other creators online. Everybody's garden and even their ornamentals are totally destroyed, depending on which crop it was. You can see right here, this is a great example of where we have cool season crops that survived, like the sugar snap peas and the collards and the carrots. Well, I think that's dill. Carrots are behind it. And then sugar snap peas, onions, cilantro, those are all fine, but my peppers and tomatoes, not so much. Usually I can actually keep those warm season crops alive throughout the winter with no problem, or very minimal problem. This year is unlike the rest of them. These are my Carolina Wonder bell peppers, and it's crazy. I can actually see them like rotting right here because I didn't harvest the really teeny tiny ones. And I see now I guess it wouldn't have mattered if I harvested them either, except maybe I would have been able to eat some of the tiny peppers. But look at how gross that is. Ooh. I know some of you had like some reservations about even going out and uncovering your garden. So many people were feeling like anxious, scared to go look at what happened. And it makes sense. A lot of us invest a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort into our garden. And this was like such a fluke weather phenomenon for us here in Florida. You know, a lot of places in Central Florida and South Florida don't typically get a frost at all. And this year was very different though. I heard even the Keys got a frost. So try not to blame yourself too much if, you know, you lost a lot of time and effort and money in your garden and you're emotionally attached to it and you feel defeated right now. I think it's really important to remember that this was a very unusual weather event for us. And I know we had, you know, a few days worth of warning, but, you know, if we were following normal timelines, a lot of us probably already had planted our spring crops, especially if you're in lower Central or South Florida. You didn't do anything wrong, but maybe maybe we're going to learn a lesson about maybe it's desirable to hold it in your seed starting cell for a little while longer. Oh, I think I'm pulling up some carrots on accident. Oops. You can see some root knot nematode damage too. That's a bummer. I thought I was getting a handle on the root knot nematodes. Guess not. Just driving through my neighborhood, we saw so many people who lost their like privacy hedges, like the Clusia. Clusia really did not do well during this freeze, but my podocarpus did actually. So maybe that's something to learn from. If you had a Clusia shrub or a Clusia privacy hedge and you had that destroyed by the frost, maybe your plan for replacement is using podocarpus instead, because now we know it, because that one fared just fine. I'm pretty this plant's been in here for a long time. I think there's probably going to be a lot of roots, and I'm a little nervous about destroying the onions as I do it, but I'll do my best to try to steer clear of the nearby onions. Of course, still see the dollar weed. The dollar weed is just fine. I know you guys can relate. I know you guys have weeds in your garden, and the weeds all survive the frost. This is like a year-old Tabasco pepper plant. I had trimmed it back because a lot of the leaves were not doing so well, and It was starting to regrow. Now it's dead. I think when something like this happens, it's very easy to feel like it was devastating for us, but, and it is, don't get me wrong, it is pretty devastating to lose all that time and money and effort, but us hobby gardeners, if you want to look at the bright side, at least we're not like fully reliant on our gardens, and we can rebuild this garden. I know it's not what any of us really want, but at least it didn't have like detrimental effects for us. Obviously, I'm speaking for people who are kind of in my same situation where we're hobby gardeners. We're not like fully reliant we're not like off-grid reliant on our garden only. We have other options available. But farmers, think about what happened to the farmers. They had to put so much effort into preserving their crops before that crazy weather came through. And for some of them, it was really tough. Like if they had equipment failures, I saw some posts on Facebook of this one farm with equipment failures as they were trying to, engineer or design some way to protect their crop from the frost. And I can only imagine their stress, staying up all night trying to fix that piece of equipment because there was so much of their livelihood that was on the line. So I really feel for somebody like that who lost so much, so much that was so important to their livelihood. It kind of makes our hobby garden seem like, not in the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. I need to get some shears. Hold on a second. So I know cleanup like this, when you're removing all these dead plants that represent all of your hard work, can be kind of like emotionally taxing. Maybe we're avoiding it for a few days because we just don't want to face the loss. It's okay to just do it in pieces, we can rebuild in pieces. Take it one bed at a time, one plant at a time if you need to. Today I want to focus on cleaning out the really dead warm season crops, and I'm going to leave in some that seem like they might recover, like this Swiss chard down here. It looks a little bit wilty. I think I can just prune it back and it'll bounce back. These are definitely dead, and we got to get this out before it causes a bunch of mold in the garden. I really need to sharpen my shears. I got these sharpeners for Christmas, for myself for Christmas. I'm a mom. I have to stuff my own stocking, right? So I stuffed it with some sharpeners for my tools, and I still haven't used it. But now this is clearly reminding me that it's time to sharpen my shears. Very dull. Okay, so it's the next day. I got a little carried away with cleaning out the garden, and now the garden is almost empty. So we're going to start the recovery process. I wanted to show you this leafy greens planter that I just got from Vego Garden. It's a self-watering indoor leafy greens planter, and I think it's perfect for this time of year, especially with this weird weather, because we're trying to keep going with the gardening, but we don't want to risk it and plant something brand new outside just yet. So let me show you what it looks like. The bottom is actually the water reservoir, and this is just an insert that goes right in the top. So see how this is just a reservoir for the water. This sits right on top, nice and snug. You'll fill this part with soil and press it into these holes, and that's where the water makes contact with the soil and the water will move up through the soil. Right here is a little Well, it's like a little refill port. This is where you're going to pour the water in, and this is the gauge. I think you can see that red dot right there, and then there's green dots. Green means there's water in it, you're good. Red means time to refill. So after you do all that, this goes on top after it's full of soil, and this is like your guide for where you're going to plant your seeds. And I also got the leafy greens seed kit that comes with lots of, I think it's spinach, mizuna, bok choy. Let's see. I love how Vego Garden has like all of these things that just kind of work so easily together. Okay, we've got tatsoi, butter crunch, arugula, bloomstill, salad bowl blend, little gem lettuce, little Shanghai bok choy, and mizuna mustard seeds. I think I actually have 2 of these, so I'm going to stick with just one of these today. I think I'm going to go with Bloomsdale spinach because I really wanted it this year in the garden, but the dang squirrels got me. So I'm going to do a full planter of Bloomsdale spinach. Keep it simple, and then I don't have to label anything. So let's get started with the recovery. This is going to stay. It's very windy, so I didn't want to do all the seed starting for, you know, eggplant, peppers, and tomatoes, and all my spring herbs. I didn't want to do that outside today. I just think this wind sucks, and the seeds will just blow out of the way, or the packets will blow out of the way, and I'll just make a mess, and it'll be a little bit more difficult than it should be. So I'm going to listen to Mother Nature and do a simpler approach today. What you're going to do is fill it up with some potting mix. I've got Happy Frog potting soil. I always use this potting soil. I used it in my GreenStalk. Pretty much everywhere I have a container. It is expensive, but it's good stuff. I'm just going to put that in there, and then I knew I was going to run out of that one, so I brought another bag. That bag's going to fly away in the wind. Fill it up. So back to this frost stuff that's been going on. I feel like so much of the advice out there is about landscape plants and what to do with them. And so I feel like we're kind of like well covered with information on the internet about what to do with those. A lot of the experts out there are saying don't trim your landscape plants until about March because they just went through something really traumatic and they need time to recover. But they do recommend trimming off any like really wet or mushy parts so that it doesn't spread. And I mean, I kind of saw that with the tomato plants that I pulled earlier. They were like wet, mushy, and the peppers too. They were like molding or about to mold. And we just really don't want to spread that type of issue around the garden. You want to get rid of that issue. It's not going to help anything. So if you see like wet, mushy stuff on your plants, whether it's in the vegetable garden or it's in your landscape plants, go ahead and trim that off. But if they just look dead, brown, wilty, but they're pretty dry, they actually recommend leaving those alone for another month. And that's because that like browning plant material will actually insulate it from any potential crazy cold weather again at the end of February. And it just allows the plant to focus on recovering, like let it grow some new growth from the crown. I know it's really disheartening to see all of this going on. Like my neighborhood just looks like really awful. The landscape is going to look bad everywhere for probably 2 to 3 months, I would guess. I already saw some landscape companies like redoing the flowers. They had just planted some flowers in like, you know, like the median areas around town, around my community. And of course they all died. And so they were already ripping them all up and putting new ones down. Well, let me know in the comments what happened, like what kind of protections or lack thereof that you took this past weekend for the frost in your yard or in your garden, and how it panned out. A lot of people were just heartbroken. I feel like the posts just keep on coming on Facebook of people being sad about it. You know, feeling like they lost so much time, effort, money down the drain. All right, there we go. I'm gonna turn it, make sure I orient it this way so that when it's time to refill, I can just refill right there from the edge. This is the copper watering can I was talking about. You know, that would have been better. Humidity dome, I am gonna use it because I want to make sure that top stays moist. And then this is the spot where their grow light sits. Now, I would use it like this. I think it's great to use it like this, but you can see I'm already in a grow shelf with a grow light right here. So I don't actually need that right now. I'm gonna go put that in storage. So pulling out some of the dead tomatoes and peppers from the garden and then starting some spinach seeds in this indoor planter is my first crack at recovering from this Florida freeze. I'd love to know what you guys are doing around your garden or your house to improve things after this freeze and when you're going to do it. I know a lot of us are going to wait to do anything for landscaping for another month. But I'm hoping this video lets you kind of get all the emotions out about the Florida freeze and we can bounce back. Maybe we just need a little sunshine. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.